Hello and welcome Svelte Hackathon 2024. My name's T-Lock and I'm going to tell you about Svelte Archipelago. If you've already read the README, maybe you can just skip ahead to the examples. And I'm not going to read this word for word, but I do kind of want to just paraphrase it a bit in case people haven't read the README. So Svelte Archipelago is a complete toolkit for backend agnostic server-rendered islands of interactivity with Svelte. You're going to be able to effortlessly add Svelte to any backend regardless of the language or framework. This is true whether you want to throw in a couple islands or do your entire frontend in Svelte. And you're not going to have to give up SSR or your Svelte developer experience. So why Svelte Archipelago? Why are we building this? Well, in my opinion, Svelte is extraordinarily well suited to building islands of interactivity. Svelte gives us reactive primitives that are universal, which means any component that we mount or hydrate is going to be able to consume and update global state freely. Our components don't have to have any knowledge of one another. There's no glue code. We literally just import the global modules that we need, and they're going to work in harmony. So in this way, Svelte is naturally going to be more like a system of islands or an island chain. You might even call that an archipelago. But I don't really see anybody talking about this. It might just be the media that I'm consuming, but I'm not seeing anything about this on Twitter or YouTube, and I think it's a major selling point to Svelte. Svelte.dev, I don't think explains this. I think they do explain that you can use Svelte with Vite, but pretty much everything there is focused on the pipeline of getting started with Svelte and then going all the way through the advanced stuff with SvelteKit. But actually, islands of interactivity are really well suited for Svelte. The problem is that managing the development process is a bit cumbersome, and there's no toolkit for it really. So what you can do is build a bunch of little Svelte apps in isolation, just mount them up manually into your DOM, and in the browser this is going to work great, but while you're developing you're going to lose the context of your wider application. You're going to give up on SSR, and it's pretty much a pain to do. I know because I do this a lot. Some of our customers are doing WordPress sites, or and we want some fancy UI for just one part of it, and I can't be bothered to write it in vanilla.js. Like, once you do Svelte, it's hard to go back. So really, I'm in the opinion that Svelte.js is just simply too good to only be a front end for SvelteKit or SPA applications. Not to say that SvelteKit or SPAs are bad. In fact, I think SvelteKit is some of the best software in all of web development right now, but that's beside the point. Svelte Hackathon, maybe I'm preaching to the choir there, but still, I believe there's room to improve the Svelte story, and putting some focus on a toolkit that would allow us to bring the magic of Svelte to every application framework would really be worthwhile. So how does it work? Well, it's a handful of tools that work together. They're going to code split your component trees into server and client components, and it's going to serve that alongside your backend over local HTTP. So this is basically the same process that you're probably already accessing your database or your Redis cache, local HTTP. Each component that gets rendered to HTML on the server includes its own dynamic import to its corresponding client component, and it's going to pass the props during hydration. So you don't have a REST API, you don't have GraphQL API, you just basically call your components from your backend. They'll go through this little node microservice to do the Svelte rendering, and then the output in the browser it knows how to handle itself. It's going to bring in, it's going to hydrate and deal with your props and everything nicely. So what are the pieces of the puzzle here? We have a bundler. It's a Vite plugin. It's going to create an entry point to your application from every individual component tree. So literally every component is a way to access the application, and then if that component imports other components, then that's kind of all comes together as one tree. Every component tree is on the server as well as in the browser. Then we have our SSR as a service, tiny Node.js service for server rendering the Svelte components as a sidecar to your favorite backend. And let's see, we covered these details already. So that's really all you need to make this work, but we have a couple other things, because the goal is to streamline your development experience and make it hopefully as close to as good as SvelteKit as we can. So we've got a Docker image here. It will let you get up to speed in just a few seconds. And we've also got an npm create package that will scaffold the front end. So if you use all these things together, it's only going to take a couple minutes, and you're going to have a fully fledged development environment. You have production mode, dev mode, hot module reloading, all the APIs from Svelte that you know and you love, except it's just going to sit right next to any backend that you want. Golang, Rust, Python, Ruby, Kotlin, Java. The list goes on. You can put this with anything. I think that the core idea is that there's a story that says if you want a highly polished interactive UI, you need a JavaScript framework. I believe that is true, but the rest of the story goes that if you want to share code or have server-side rendering or not build two applications, then you have to also write your backend in JavaScript. And we're going to take a slightly different approach here. We're going to say, well, we don't have to write JavaScript ourselves on the back end. We can just call into a little sidecar that will technically run the JavaScript to render out the component for us. Because if we're reading between the lines on the story of the JavaScript meta framework, we're kind of saying that because we want a highly polished UI, then we also have to write our business logic and our database code in JavaScript. And I don't think that's true. And let's jump into an example and see if we can prove that.